Hey guys, it's Julie Malillo. I'm a life coach here in Manhattan. My website is yourdreamslifecoach.com. Let's talk about how narcissists confuse subjective and objective. I had a comment on one of my videos. I wanted to kind of clarify what this means exactly. So, a restaurant is not good or bad because good and bad for a restaurant are subjective. Objective for a restaurant, we can measure different things with facts and we can say if those are true or not. So we can say, does this restaurant have a bathroom? Is this restaurant, is the bathroom clean? Is there trash on the floor? Is it cleaned a few times a day or not? We can measure these things, right? We can find out if they're true or false. We can find out if they've had any violations of their food code. We can find out facts like that, right? But when we determine if the restaurant is overall good or bad, that is something that is subjective. That's a personal preference. Because for you, you might not care if they've had health codes. You might say, well, hey, I have a strong immune system. I can eat anything. I don't even care. Someone else, that might be reason that they never go there at all because they don't want to get sick. So even that is based on personal preference. So we have to distinguish what is objective from subjective. Objective is facts, things that can be proven. So this restaurant has a parking lot or it doesn't. That's a fact that can be proven. But whether or not you think a parking lot is important for a restaurant to have is subjective. So if you say, oh, that's a terrible restaurant, they don't even have a parking lot, subjective. Objective would just be saying, well, they have a parking lot or they don't. Okay, you can prove that. You can't argue with someone that, the parking lot's right there, I can see it, right? So this is something that narcissists confuse, is they think that what they feel subjectively is objective. This is where the glitch happens in their brain. So if a restaurant doesn't have a parking lot and they think that all restaurants should have a parking lot, I don't want to use valet, this is ridiculous, okay? Then they will consider that a bad parking lot, and then they will think that, well, everyone should agree with me because I think it's bad. I think it's bad not to have a parking lot. That's inconvenient for me. So everyone should agree with me. Of course, they don't realize that a lot of other people have their own unique way of thinking and feeling about that, which is why it's subjective, not objective. You can't argue with someone that they like or don't like something. That's a key thing that narcissists don't get. And they will actually argue with you that you should think it's a bad restaurant too, because you shouldn't like not having a parking lot because they don't like that. So you shouldn't like it. Or if they don't like seafood and this is a seafood place, they're going to hate it. And they think you should hate it too. You should hate, don't you understand why seafood is gross? You should. Everyone should agree with me that seafood is gross because I don't like it. That's how a narcissist sees things. And no, not all restaurants are good or bad. If you go on Yelp, you can see a perfect example. Go on any restaurant in Yelp and you will see 5-star reviews, 1-star reviews, and somewhere in the middle. That's because people have different things that they value. They have different preferences. They have different taste buds. They have different likes and dislikes. So, if you're someone who likes your hamburger to not be fully cooked and you think it tastes better that way and you don't care that maybe you can get food poisoning, which a lot of people do think that, and a restaurant serves you a hamburger that's pink in the middle, you're going to think, oh, this is perfect. That's how I like my meat cooked. But if you're someone who always fully cooks your ground meat and you see it's pink in the middle, and you might go and write a really bad review. What's wrong with them? They don't even know how to cook their meat properly. Okay, so you might get a 5-star and a 1-star review right there. So what is the good restaurant? Things can only be measured on objective terms. So we can measure things like, how long do they cook their meat? That's objective. Whether that's good or bad is subjective. That's up to the person to decide. So if you go on Yelp and you see even the bad restaurant will have some really good reviews. They'll have some people that really like that. And I say bad, meaning that the average of those stars is a low number. Um, so you have to like take those things into account. Some people will only go to Zagat rated restaurants because that is how they subjectively define being good. Someone else won't set foot in a Zagat restaurant and they'll say that's just pretentious and silly. I like to go to hole in the walls like Anthony Bourdain would do. That's what I consider good, is something authentic. If I get food poisoning, I don't really care because it was authentic and I have a strong immune system. So just to make that clear, and we can talk about any subject, it's not just food. We can talk about any preference in the world. What is good music? What is good fashion? We have objective, we have subjective. We can say that this fashion brand sold this amount of dresses this year, right? But does that make it good? Right? Because like McDonald's sold a lot of hamburgers. Does that make them good? Personal preference again. If you don't like McDonald's, you're not going to care how many hamburgers they sold. And if you don't like this dress, you also don't think it's good just because it sold a lot. So if you're not a narcissist, you're going to have those critical thinking skills to be able to separate out what is good and what is bad as far as personal preference. And then you can see the difference between good and bad, personal preference wise, subjective wise, and objective reality, which is something that's a fact, something that can be measured, and something that you can say this is true or false. Narcissists aren't able to do that. They blend the two together into, if I like sports cars, everyone should like sports cars. Of course, because it's what I like. So everyone would like the same thing as me. And they really can't see the difference that, yeah, we can say objective facts about sports cars, right? We can talk about how certain parts of those cars are physically different than other cars, and we can define that, and we can say yes or no. Is this a sports car? No, it's a minivan. But we can't say, should Mary like sports cars? Because that's subjective. That's a personal opinion and preference. We can't say if she should like that or not. But narcs think that we should be able to tell Mary, yeah, you should like sports cars. And that's where this logical error comes into play across the board with everything, guys. They really can't distinguish objective reality from personal preference. So that is just one of the many logical errors that narcissists make, and some other types of people make also, because it's a deficit in the critical thinking areas of your brain. So that's basically what's going on. It's not that they're dumb or anything like that. They just are basically missing part of their brain. Or let me rephrase that. The part of the brain is there, it's just not working. It's not getting lit up on those brain scans. So like the prefrontal cortex is where you do a lot of your logical thinking. And when that's not lighting up enough and it's not working well, that's where you get those kind of logical errors, those biases that are so just you can't change their mind. Whereas a normal person might have a slight logical error, but all you have to do is say, oh, wait a second, but hey, that's whether or not the restaurant has a parking lot. That's not if Mary should like the restaurant. And they'll say, oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, totally. But when you don't have that part of your brain working, you just can't see the logic because they have ego thinking instead of that logical part. So ego is saying, I'm right about everything. I'm important, I'm special, I'm perfect. So if I think it's a bad restaurant, of course everyone else should think it's a bad restaurant too, because otherwise that would make me wrong. And they can't stand to be wrong. So even about something as silly as what ice cream flavor is best, if I like strawberry, everybody has to like strawberry, or else that would make me wrong. I can't tolerate that, so therefore they must be wrong, that they can't see the truth that strawberry is the best. So that's how a narcissist works. Partly it's a lack of empathy, because when you have empathy, you can see, oh, people are different than me. People have different thoughts and feelings and preferences than me. So part of it's a lack of empathy, but a lot of it is just that lack of the prefrontal cortex working. And when that's not working, they can't do the critical thinking. So when we talk about how our students have much lower rates of critical thinking and we need to teach them more, it's not really something you can teach people, because if they have this problem in their brain, you can teach them all you want and they're still going to go right back to everyone should like strawberry ice cream because that's what I like and they're wrong and I'm right, because that's how their brain works. And it doesn't matter how many hours of instruction you give them, it's not going to change. And you see this in all ages of people that have narcissism. Um, so when they measure this in college students and they say, wow, we have this epidemic of students who don't know how to use critical thinking, and then they try harder to teach them that, I think we've all seen this in a class, at least I have, where there's a student who just can't understand that not everyone agrees with them. I remember one of my classes in college, the student was saying that hunting's wrong and everyone should see that. How can they not see that it's wrong? Because it's what they think. And they really didn't have the empathy or critical thinking to realize that people don't all agree with that. They have different ways of seeing any issue, anything. Subjective versus objective is not the same thing. So, as narcissism rates have increased, the lack of critical thinking has also increased because it goes together. Narcissists don't do critical thinking because the ego is the one driving the bus, and the ego isn't capable of critical thinking. The ego can only say, I'm right, you're wrong. Okay, I hope that was interesting and cleared up a little bit of the confusion about that topic of subjective versus objective. Again, my name is Julie Melillo. I'm a life coach in Manhattan. My website is yourdreamslifecoach.com. Okay, thanks for watching.